wearing all of my clothes right now, even my socks. So I was going to deliver a well thought out, well-timed joke, but all I can think about is the fact that I'm wearing wet socks. Hey guys, I'm Bella and welcome to my crafting desk, where we are totally serious and totally professional all of the time. So I wanted to start off this video by saying that while I'm going to be making jokes and going to be entertaining, oh my god, so entertaining, I don't want anyone to perceive this as making fun of the current situation or how serious the situation actually is. And I don't want to understate anybody's sacrifices or anybody's struggle at the moment. But on about day 30, 300, year 3000, I gotta admit, sheltering in place, as necessary it is, gets really boring. And I gotta be honest, you know, after scrolling through my phone for the 16th hour of the day, I need something more. You know what I mean? I think a lot of people are in the same place. And so, Bella's Crafting Desk was born. Yay! It is my mission to bring the bored internet users out of the darkness and into the light. Armed only with my scissors, my needle, and my copious, seriously, I cannot understate copious amounts of crafting supplies. It is my mission to make my future followers into craftians, craftites, what? People who craft. And just to get, even people who don't want to craft and just want to tag along for the fun, something to watch, something to do. Hey, if you just want to watch this to make fun of me, can't stop you, I guess. Please don't. I have no self-esteem. Yeah. And so let me look at my notes. And so yeah, I think it's time to take a seat at the crafting desk and jump right into our first craft.
Okay, so my audio cut out a little bit there, but basically we're going to be making a faux Polaroid picture line. So you're going to get out some white and red cardstock, an X-Acto knife, and in order to keep things from getting scratched up, a little cutting board for that X-Acto knife. You're also going to want to get out a ruler to make some nice and neat straight lines, along with some scissors to cut out those lines. You can watch me creepily stroke those right there. You're also going to want to get out a Sharpie or any other permanent black marker, along with a pen for writing and a pencil for marking those lines that I mentioned earlier. I grabbed these little clips from the dollar store before quarantine started, but any functional attacher will work. You're also going to want to get some photos out. You're also going to need 2 magnets and a piece of string or twine to loop between these 2 magnets in order to hang your photos on. And most importantly, Mod Podge. Now I love using Mod Podge for paper crafts because it dries well, it's not gloopy like Elmer's, and it's just great. And I apply those with 2 paintbrushes that I will dip in water to keep them going too solid. Now I've laid out my white piece of paper here, and I'm going to get my ruler out and I'm going to mark about 3.5 inches, let's say. It doesn't have to be 3.5 inches, but those are the measurements I'm using. You can make any size rectangle you'd like. This is just what I'm recommending. And that's the width along the bottom, and then you're going to make a height of 4.5 inches tall. But again, if you have bigger photos, if you have smaller photos, you can always change the proportion of this as long as you have a rectangular shape. As you can see, I'm doing that there. So I'm gonna cut this out, make sure to straighten up the edges. Now I'm gonna draw a little window with my pencil. You're gonna wanna adjust this and orient it towards the top of the rectangle in order to show off your photo at the top and to have a little space for writing a caption at the bottom. Now, you want to make sure to leave a border of paper around the rectangle on each side so you have enough room to attach your photos on the back. If you don't do this, then you're basically just going to have a bottom piece of paper to clip to your photo, and that's not cute. We want to have a little Polaroid window that is about 3 inches by 2.5 inches. And now we're going to take that and we're going to put it on our cutting board, and we're going to get out our X-Acto knife. We're going to get out our X-Acto knife. We're going to, come on. Yeah, there you go. I'm a professional. I know what I'm doing. Yeah, totally. So I'm just going to take that X-Acto knife and I'm going to cut the window out. Now you want to make sure when you're using sharp objects like X-Acto knives that you're being very careful, especially in times like this. Hospitals are a bit overrun at the time, so you want to make sure that you're really careful, especially now. But basically, as long as you're following the pattern, you're not pressing too hard like you can probably see me doing right now, you should be fine. And you can see me just following the lines, just making sure to make it as straight as possible. And I'm gonna pop that out. And you can see it's a little window to give you a sneak peek. But I'm gonna go back through and I'm gonna clean up the edges, any sort of swerving off the pattern, any sort of crooked lines or little pieces hanging off, I'm just gonna take off right now on all of the sides, because it's gonna be pretty obvious that it's uneven once you put the photo in, if there are any uneven sides. So you can see me cleaning that up right there, taking off the little pieces. And finally you can see my little Polaroid window. Looks real cute so far. So for this one Polaroid frame, I'm going to be creating sort of an Instagram look to it with a little heart-like icon and the little comment button. So you can see the little heart that I've drawn on this red piece of cardstock. And now I'm going to do the little comment bubble on a white piece of paper. And after this, I'm going to cut these both out, and I'm going to rim the comment button in black so it stands out a little bit. You can see that right here. Okay. So I'm going to pull out my frame again. And I'm going to glue these little pieces onto the Polaroid frame with Mod Podge. And I'm going to use the little brush to do that so I get just enough glue to stick things on, but not enough so it squishes everywhere. I'm a professional, you see. I'm going to glue those onto the bottom left-hand side of the frame. And you can use your finger, the paintbrush back, a toothpick, someone else's finger. It doesn't really matter how you get that on there. But yeah, and then you can write a little caption on the bottom, or you can write, you know, quote-unquote comments to make it look like the Instagram. Or you can put flowers, whatever you would like, you can decorate it like that. Now I've flipped my frame over and I'm going to put glue on the back around the edges, putting enough that you can attach the frame on to the picture, but not enough that it squishes everywhere, because if you put too much, then it's just going to look messy. If you don't want to use glue on your photos, like maybe you want to repurpose them in the future, you can always use tape. As long as it's affixed to the back strongly, you should be fine. It's just that I printed out photos, so it doesn't really matter to me if they're glued to the frame or not. You also want to make sure you're dipping your brush in water after you're done using it in the glue if you ever want to use it again, just so it doesn't harden up. Now I'm going to take this photo and I'm going to press it down to the back of it, and I'm going to be pushing on all of the sides in order to do that. Now I copied that a couple times and attached all of my photos on there, so there we go. There's my photo line.
For our second craft, I wanted to teach you guys how to make ear savers. If you haven't heard of them already, they're basically little pieces of plastic or fabric that's knitted or sewn or crocheted, what have you, that connects a mask in the back without wrapping around your ears. Basically, when you wear a mask for a really long time, it'll dig into your ears, and it can become really painful. So instead you hook it onto the ear saver, and it keeps the mask attached to your face without digging into your skin. It's a really creative tool that I've seen other people online.
Okay, so for this craft, we basically got two options. We can either sew the ear saver or we can knit the ear saver. So I'm going to show you the first way to do it, and that is through sewing. And for the sewing part, what you're going to need are scissors. You're also going to need some thread. You're going to need a needle. You're going to need 2 buttons of the same size. I have a little pack here. And you're also going to need a pair of jeans or any other random material that hopefully would match your thread, but doesn't necessarily have to. You could buy some material, but I don't really think it's necessary if you have something lying around, especially something this whole. So you're going to take your jean material and you're going to cut out a little bit of a rectangle or a square. I think a square is a little bit easier to mold. So we're going to just snip off a tiny little triangle on one side. And then on the opposite side, we're going to snip off a triangle of the same size. And we're going to turn it, and we're going to cut off a big triangle, on the other side and meet it at the other corner. And we're going to do the same thing on the other side. So that gives us a nice, neat rectangle. It's not perfect, but it's pretty good. You want to make sure that your rectangle isn't exactly the distance between your ears, just because you want to have it nice and tight still, but not too tight. And you're basically just going to create a little hem along the edge. So you can see me measuring out my thread. And you create this hem by folding your fabric over once, and you're going to do a basic sewing stitch. You can see me giving an example of that right here, just in case you're not familiar with it. Now, if you wanted to make this look really good, you would probably duplicate this and create 2 of these pieces of fabric and then sew those together. But really, this is just to hold a mask on. It's more for practicality than for aesthetic. But you know, you're free to decorate it as you will and to expand on this expand upon this as you will. So you can see I'm pulling it taut but not too tight, and I did that around all of the edges just to give me a nice neat little rectangular squarish piece of fabric. So now I'm going to attach these buttons onto the fabric. You can see my fingers are very sweaty from the way that I can pick up those buttons. Yay! So basically you're just going to place them equidistant apart. This would be the time where you can really experiment with how close or how far you want your buttons to be on your ear saver. So now you're going to sew on this button by pushing through each hole, going from back to front. And you want to make sure to go through each hole a couple times. The way to make it look neat is that you push through, as you can see, I'm pushing through one button hole and I'm pulling it all the way through, and then I'm pushing through the buttonhole on the opposite side. And I'm going to be doing that a couple times to make sure it's nice and strong. And then you're going to move your needle while it's behind the fabric and push it through the opposite holes and do the same thing. Now, in order to tie this off, the way I like to do it is to create a nice little loop by sewing through the fabric and then pulling my needle through. And I'm going to snip that off, and that gives you a nice and neat button. Yay! Really, you can pull it, it's very sturdy. And now I did this to the other side. I'm going to show you how strong and sturdy it is on the other side too, just to really exemplify that this will hold your mask on and you should not be afraid to use these. little pieces of material in order to help you out. So now I'm going to be showing you the second way, which is through knitting. So I've got my knitting needles and my ball of floofy black fabric, yarn. So what are words? This is yarn. I've got that out for you right here. And I've also got out my buttons again. You're going to need 2 more out. And you're also going to need your needle and your thread out again. Now I'm using black yarn, so I don't really care to match the yarn to the thread, but like, you're welcome to do it if you'd like. So we're going to be taking our yarn and we're going to be making a loop around your finger. You can see right there, and you're going to be pulling the yarn that's still attached to the ball through that loop in order to create a loop that you can pull and then adjust, as you can see I'm doing here. Okay, so then you're going to take that loop and you're going to put it onto your knitting needle, and you're going to pull the yarn so it's just firmly attached to the needle but not pulled very tight. You want it close but not too close. You can still slide it around very easily. It's not too tight. And we're going to cast on. So how you do this is you're basically going to be creating little loops all the way up the needle. So I'm just wrapping it around my thumb, and I'm going to be sticking my needle through the back of the loop and onto the needle, and then just pulling, again, taut but not too tight, and just make sure that they're pretty even. And you're gonna do that one more time, just to show you how to do that. And you can see they're pretty even, but not, exactly perfect. So you're going to continue that to create the length of your product. So however long you want your rectangle to be, that's how long and how many loops you should make. So now I've made as many loops as I'm going to want. So I'm going to start knitting here. So in order to knit, what you're going to want to do is you're going to take your needle that's full of stitches and you're going to hold it in your dominant hand. And you're going to take your empty needle in your opposite hand. I don't know why I made bunny ears there, but there you go. And you're going to take your needle that's empty and you're going to stick it through the back of the stitch on the other hand. You can see I'm just poking it through right there. I'm trying to give you a couple different angles so you can try and see exactly where you're inserting your stitch. You can see it from above right there. And I'm going to do it one more time just to give you a little bit of a closer up shot of it. You can see it right there. Now you're going to take your yarn and you're going to wrap it around the empty needle. And you're going to pull that yarn through the loop with the empty needle and then pull your stitch off of the full needle onto the empty needle. And you have your first stitch done. So I'm going to show you a couple more times just so you get it down. You push it through the back. You wrap it around the needle. And you're going to pull that loop through and pull the stitch off onto the empty needle. And you're going to keep doing that until you have finished the entire row. I'm going to be speeding up right here just so you can get an idea of how it looks when you're moving a little bit faster. Now the really pro knitters probably don't use their fingers, but I'm not like amazing at knitting, and I don't think you really have to be in order to make this craft, but here you go. Here's the basically finished row of stitches that you're going to be making. I think I made about like 4 or 5 rows just to give it a little bit of height right there. But now I'm going to be finishing off like the last row so that you can bind off this project. That's what it's called. Binding off is the word. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to knit one stitch, you're going to knit another stitch, and then you're going to take the first stitch and pull it over the second stitch so that only the second stitch remains on the needle. You just completely pull that sucker off. You just yank it off. And you're going to knit again, and then you're going to pull the first stitch off over the second stitch and just yank that sucker off. And you just complete that until you go to the end of the row and you should be binding off. At which point you can just make a little knot and then hide the little thread throughout the knitting that you've done in the past just to make it look nice and neat. You're going to sew those two buttons on like I showed you in the last example. Make sure they're nice and strong. And yeah, you should have your second ear saver done. Congratulations!
Now, this last craft was thought of with all you very especially lonely people out there. We're going to be creating People Pillow. Yes, you remember those mid 2000s like man pillows with the arms? Yeah, we're gonna be making one of them.
Okay, so in order to create your pillow person, you're going to need scissors, a needle. I'm using a quilting needle because it's a little bit longer and sharper, some thread, a little bit of polyfill stuffing, some skin tone fabric. I have light color, but you're allowed to use whatever you want. This is just what I had on hand. You're also going to need a flannel shirt. I think it's easier to work with, and it's pretty non-gendered. So you're going to lay it out flat with all the hems met up, and then you're going to cut down the middle. And you're also going to cut where I'm showing you right now, just to get rid of this little weird piece of fabric. You can pretend this is a good transition for me, right? I don't feel like fixing that, so we're just going to leave that. We're also going to take a little snip at the top, just so we can hem that up to make it look a little bit neater, as you can see in the next video right here. Now this piece of fabric is going to be pretty loose. As you can see, you can just flip it up and down. Now you can leave that, but I put two little stitches, just pretty shallow so they stay. Then you're going to be hemming the two pieces of fabric together all the way along the sides. So in order to do this, I'm going to be doing an invisible stitch. And how you do this is you basically sew between the two folded pieces of fabric. So as you can see right here, I'm basically sewing in the valley between the two pieces of fabric, which can be kind of difficult to pick up, but once you really learn how to do it and once you practice it, it is a very convenient stitch because as you can see when I pull it together, it's very non-visible, it's very clean, it looks very nice. So I'm going to be showing you how to do that. So basically you're going to be pushing your needle through one side of the fabric and then the other side of the fabric, just doing a nice swooshing movement in order to catch both sides without poking all the way through. And you're going to pull that tight. Next, you're going to be dealing with the sleeves. Now, in order to keep the stuffing from coming out, you can hem the ending, but we're going to go extra. We're going to go big. We're going to be creating a hand. Yes, a hand. Now, in retrospect, I wish I had stopped myself because I know how this ends. You don't know how this ends, but I know how this ends. And it might look all right now with my two pieces of fabric layered on top of each other, which I'm going to sew together. But when it comes out, when I turn it inside out, it looked like this. I am so sorry. Please just hem your sleeves. Don't be like me and create a hand. Hem your sleeves, people. Please just hem your sleeves. Okay, so I attached my hand into my sleeve, making sure to also sew up any sort of gaps that I have in the sleeve up top too. So now finally I'm going to be stuffing my person pillow. So I've got my polyfill here, and I'm going to be filling that and sewing that up.
Why is this comfortable? I'm upset at how comfortable this is. He's fluffy and I just called it he. Oh no! Even the hand, even though it looks like this, even that's comfortable. Oh no, oh no. You know, no one ever expects to come on camera and have to apologize, but I'd just like to say to the whole internet, I'm so sorry for this monstrosity. There are no words to describe how sorry I am for this and just for everything, and I'm gonna take some time to work on myself and really think about what I've done, and I don't know when I'm gonna post another video. Just gonna take some time to work on me. Yeah, so thank you so much for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you enjoyed the crafts, or if you never want to see this again. It would really mean a lot to me. Thank you for understanding, and I'll see you next time. Bye.
At the end of your message, press 1.
I have the people living above me. I can't hear this.